Hello, everyone. Welcome to Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. We got a full house tonight, which is we haven't had a full house for a while, so this should be exciting. Before we get stuck into what I think will be quite a lively topic for us, let's do a wristwatch check. Todd, Todd, you're in the hot seat. What are you wearing?
All right, I am wearing my put up here. There it is.
It's a little bit
Longines Big Eye chronograph with the petro dial and the titanium case.
Nice.
One of my favorite watches. Thank you. One of my favorite watches to put on. It's one of the ones that, as a chronograph guy, I have a lot of really heavy chronographs, which I kind of like. But this one's really nice when you want to put, like I wore to church today. If you want to put something on, but you don't want to know it's there all the time, this is a good one for sure.
I'm surprised you only had one there, Todd.
Well, and okay. So next to me.
Oh, don't provoke him. Oh, dear.
Seiko, look at that. It's my newest 6139 variant that just came in.
Yeah. Does anyone watch that Hot Ones where the Hot Wings?
I've seen that.
Yeah. They did a one with Macaulay Culkin the other day, and he was double wristing, but on the same wrist. Like he had like two, and that's when those Home Alone royalty checks come in every year. Dennis, welcome back.
Hey.
What are you wearing?
Yeah, thank you very much. Today I am wearing it's a Seiko. This is the Seiko 7N439070. It was my dad's Seiko. He gave it to me when he retired because he does not wear a watch anymore. So I'm trying it on a new strap.
Nice.
Yeah, some of that gold. Looks like it's in good nick as well.
Yeah, the PVD's got some scuffs and scrapes. I replaced the crystal and such after I took ownership of it.
Cool. Colby, you're up next. What are you wearing?
I have my Christopher Ward 12X titanium.
Cool. Awesome.
Yep. Lovely watch with, of course, the SH21 movement, now rebranded, CW 003?
001 for that one.
001, that's right. Yep.
Awesome.
Nice.
Looks cool. Thomas, what are you wearing?
I've got my Breguet 7147.
Ooh, very nice.
The watch that I traded my hype watch Rolex Kermit for with Watchfinder for a non-hype watch.
Oh, very nice.
So,
that's stealth wealth right there, my friend. Stealth wealth.
Absolutely.
Mark, you're up next. What are you wearing?
This is a Christopher Ward from the past, their C8 UTC World Timer.
What's the movement in that, Mark?
It's some kind of Solita.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget which one, but it's the standard GMT.
Because they have a similar one that they put the SH21 in.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Awesome. And I've been trying to rotate my watch collection quite a bit so I don't get tempted to sell any. So I've been wearing my Veya, my little G. I think this is G2 or the G5, but it's the quartz version of their sort of homage to the Explorer 2, the first Explorer 2. So I've been wearing that. And whilst we're on selling stuff, Dennis, you'll have to shut your ears. I apologize. I'm gonna shill my own eBay store here. eBay store again.
No.
So yes. So head on over to the eBay store. There is some things that I've reviewed recently, some straps, etc. Even a Christopher Ward consort bracelet on there, which maybe I'll talk about one day. But anyway,
Was there a pineapple?
there was a pineapple
In a Starbucks cup?
and a Starbucks cup and a coconut because I like to give variety. This is the thing.
It's very
variety.
eclectic.
Very eclectic, yeah, exactly. So head on over there. Get yourself a sticker, which $2.75 to support the channel, free shipping. I mean, you can't go wrong, can you? Really, for a sticker. There you go. Okay, thanks, Dennis, for bearing with me then. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to we are going to talk about Watchfinder's top 20 most wanted watches. So, Mark, this was a little article you sent over, or I suppose.
Yeah, this ever since I bought a watch from Watchfinder, I've been subject to their email list, and I really should take myself off the distribution list. But this one came up, and it's these are the top 20 watches they most want to acquire. So my presumption is that this is the top 20 watches they have demand for. And I was looking at this list, and there was only really one, maybe two surprises on there. And I was thinking, does this reflect my own top 5 I want to buy list? Is anything on here on my list? And then I realized I'd actually owned one and sold it a couple of years ago. So, but it was an interesting, because this to me is what one presumes that Watchfinder has customers that aren't just me, who are sort of weird collectors, but they sell to a broad audience. So this perhaps reflects what a broader audience wants versus what a watch nerd like myself would buy.
Yeah,
that was the genesis of the idea.
And this kind of fits beautifully almost into, or dovetails into, your live stream from yesterday, Dennis, as well, that from the blog to watch article, which we can
right,
go through.
Yeah. So there was an article, oh gosh, maybe over a week, I guess, ago at this point, that I think it was David, maybe it was Mike, one of the two, over with a blog to watch, wrote about the notion of collecting and the idea of superficial collectors. And yeah, that's it. Mike wrote it. And so it wasn't really about the watches specifically that are chosen, but rather the methodology by which one would choose. And the thought of, essentially, if I were to condense it down, edit it, if you will, down to 75% reduction of words, it would be, if you used AI to decide what you were going to collect, you're a superficial collector. And as interesting as the article was, the comment section is really interesting, because a lot of people, I think, felt very judged. And I don't know if it was the words or just like a watch that they had is like, anyone who owns a Black Bay probably got offended by this. And so you just saw this massive amount of commentary, with people agreeing with the article, with people saying this is stupid. You shouldn't be judging collectors in any way in terms of how they put their collection together. And so I thought it was interesting to see, I could sympathize with both sides. One, I definitely, when I hear about how someone assembled something, I do, I judge it just like I judge anything I see. But on the flip side, if you want to be inclusive, you don't want to be gatekeeping off of how people might get into something. So anyway, that was the motivation for what I talked about yesterday. But, you see a list like what comes out from Watchfinder in terms of what they're after. And yeah, broadly, when I saw those list of watches, there were probably a couple that I didn't think of that ended up being on that list. But I think most people would say this is not particularly surprising to them.
Mm.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll have to come back to that article as well, because I think one of the most fascinating things was Ariel's comment, Ariel Adams' comment, because he made some interesting points in his comment, which I think we should definitely discuss as a panel as we go through this. But going back to Watchfinder, I mean, yeah, this is that. I mean, actually, was anybody surprised at anything on here as a watch collector?
The Monaco surprised me.
The Monaco surprised me too. I got this email in the UK, and it was the identical list as well. Yeah, basically 8 Rolex, 4 Omegas, 3 Tudors, 2 Cartiers, 2 Patek Philippe's, and 1 Tag. And it's like, it surprised me. This Tag Monaco. Yeah, I mean, but sorry, go ahead, Dennis.
No, I wasn't the one speaking.
Oh, I was just going to say, I wasn't surprised by the Monaco at all. I mean, that is...
I wasn't.
I feel like that has cemented its place in popular culture. For example, it was a watch heavily featured in Breaking Bad, one of the greatest TV shows of all time. I was actually a little bit more surprised by the Tudors that were on there, especially considering the difference between their reputation among enthusiasts and the actual amount of sales that they have.
Yeah.
The watch that surprised me was the Speedmaster in the middle of the bottom row. Seamaster in the middle of the bottom row that's Sam's showing now.
With the grey dial.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had one of those and I sold it a couple of years ago. But it's one of the most sold Seamasters. There's, at the time there were a lot of them about because people just got bored with how flashy it was. It's interesting to see that it's popped up now in the most wanted list.
Yeah, I had that colorway too.
When a lot of people have dumped him.
Well, for
I had
my
that
money,
colorway and I dumped it as well.
for my money, that is the ugliest of all the Seamasters. The ugliest
I love
colorway.
Omega's gray. I love it.
Yeah.
But it was a very shiny gray.
I didn't like how it wore on the bracelet. I hate that bracelet, and that's why I sold it. I always wore it on a third-party strap, but I just got tired of owning it.
Yeah, me too. And I sold that and the white dial Seamaster as well. I sold that at the same time.
Right.
But it was nice to see that the classic black dial Seamaster was in demand. Nice to know that the classics are still popular.
Yeah, up here. Yeah, and they mean it as well, because if you get they're doing the top 20 most wanted, and they also actually want them. I mean, I don't know what happens when. I mean, has anybody sold to Watchfinder? I got a quote on a watch once.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I traded as I say, bought my Brego from them, but that was a trade. I traded my Rolex Submariner Hermit with them. So
I traded, I think, a Rolex Oyster Perpetual towards a Glasuta Original with them a few years ago.
Yeah. Do you know, I think this is interesting. So Brassic Time says, judging by the number of Tudors on Chrono 24, a lot of people are dumping them. Do you know, I'll just mention, so I had this Black Bay 58, and somebody was mentioning it on Watch Crunch last night. I was reading Watch Crunch article, and I just happened to look because I knew that there was always Black Bay 58s on there, and I sold mine on Chrono 24. So I think there is, it's interesting that Watchfinder still want to buy them, because there seems to be a lot, you know, of the Black Bay 58s on, especially that original colorway on Chrono 24. I don't know whether, I mean, I know why I sold it, but.
Well, it's interesting to think what it says about Tudor, because if you've been paying attention to the Morgan Stanley watch report, the sales of Tudor have gone down pretty dramatically over the past couple of years. But maybe that's just because more people are looking to buy Tudors on the secondary market. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the gilt dial Black Bay 58 is a bit of a classic. The original gilt dial one with the gilt hands and indices. And I know people who swear by the Black Bay 58. They say it's a worthy competitor to the Submariner, you know, at a budget price, and it's a great watch. You know, they love it. They wear it with pride, and I know several people in different watch clubs that swear by it.
Yeah,
so it's a very popular watch.
Yeah, Robert actually. So Robert Coleman says, "Why did you sell your Black Bay, Sam? I find them a little boring." I'm going to upset people now, but that is why I sold it, and I think that's why there is a lot of them on the secondary market, because it's, I don't know, it is a little. I don't know, after you own it, it is a little bit. I found it a little bit boring, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's. I don't know whether it's. I don't know. I'm going to upset some people, so I won't say.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
No, spit it out. Spit it out.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. I think it's very. When it came out, there was a huge buzz for it, wasn't there? And everybody wanted one. And I remember at that time, I kept going. I had to go to Vegas a lot for work. And I went 1 year, like, to Vegas 7 times, like mostly for work, but like 4 times for. That was when I lived in California and we could drive over. and I kept hunting for it, and you couldn't get them. And then I got it on the. I think I've told the story a load of times. I had to get it on that NATO, which was that fabric strap is absolute joke. They should never ever have put that watch on that fabric strap. It's an insult to buyers, and you could only get it on that fabric strap. I don't know if anybody remembers, but right at the start, it was really hard to get it on the bracelet. So maybe for me, it was a lot of build up, and then when I actually got it, I was like, oh, I don't really know about it. It seems like it was Tudor's. It seems like this is going to sound weird, but it seems like a watch that Tudor made to sell. Like it was like it was purpose built to attract collectors. I feel
it's it's a competent watch. They don't make a bad watch, but this was a very middle of the road, safe watch. Right from the start. I mean, it's a nice looking watch, but there's nothing about it that says I'm special. What's special is the amount of marketing they did around it. The watch itself is kind of dull.
It's a Submariner homage. It's a Submariner homage, basically.
To the Bond one. Then Dr. No.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it being a little bit boring. I mean, some of the most popular watches, like the Submariner, they're all boring. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Timeless is another word for it if you want to put a positive spin on it.
Well, you look at the Watchfinder list here. There's like one green dial. Everything else is black, white, and blue. Like this isn't exactly edgy stuff here.
No, but I
think with Tudor, for me, the thing that's always sort of, getting kind of to Colby's point about the Morgan Stanley report, I sort of think it's a twofold thing. One, there was a time like during the pandemic where even the initial release Tudors were difficult to get. And I think that attracted some speculation. And then once it became obvious that Tudor will always eventually produce enough watches for everyone who wants one, I think that's dried up. The other thing is, and this might upset some people, but I don't think it's particularly controversial. It seems like Tudor, when they do a release, they deliberately don't make it perfect and they iterate on it over time. And I think some people then dump the watch eventually because the one they bought wasn't every box checked, and they either get the one that eventually checks all the boxes or they move on to another brand. My case in point would be the Coke bezel coming out with the gilt. People wanted white. They put it out in gilt. Some people bought it anyway. They're going to do a white text version of that Coke dial watch eventually, because they always do. They finally fixed the Submariner iteration to give it white. Like they do this. It's like they deliberately we're going to get some people to buy this, and we're going to deliberately make something that they're not going to like about it, and hopefully we'll get a second sale out of them later when we fix the mistake. That's what I think they do, and they're the only ones that jump out to me as doing this. But it seems like a tactic. I
agree, Dennis. The one that stands out to me from the Tudor range is the new FXD GMT, because they finally took the master chronometer and they put it in a Pelagos, but they didn't put it in the right one.
Right.
They needed to put it in the main line with the bracelet, and I think that would be, to me, that would be the best Pelagos. So that's where I saw it as well.
Yeah, and going back to your point, Colby, about the Submariner, it's funny because I was just at a work meeting and my colleagues got one of the new Submariners, and you do notice it when somebody's wearing it. Whether you like it or not, it has like a presence to it, where I don't really think the Black Bay 58 did. Like you will always notice. I mean, certainly the maxi case Submariner, it's a good looking, like it's a design that is. It's just a good looking design. That obviously the black dial, the monochrome look, but there's just something about that watch. I mean, I've never owned one, but there's just something about it that really just catches the same with the Speedmaster as well. There's just something about it, the way that it wears, the way that it looks, that I think catches the eye, even though it's like a more classic design.
But I think the other thing this list says is just how conservative people's color choices really are.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is going to be availability, there's a lot of black, blue, and white dial watches made, but those are also in demand. People, the idea of everyone's got to have a bright green dial or a bright red dial or whatever it's great for people who've got more than one watch, but a lot of people don't like to shout. And these classic colors go with everything. So I think I'm not too surprised by the color palette. I hadn't thought about it till someone said it, but I'm not too surprised by how boring, mundane, conservative the color choices are, because they are the timeless ones.
Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, the two. I mean, you got the Pelagos with the blue dial there, and the Patek, but the two other blue dials, they're the same watch, just different iterations of it.
Rolex Bluesy,
yeah. I mean, I was the Cartier Santos. I don't know whether I've just never really noticed it before, but it does seem that that's become more. Am I just imagined it's become more popular in the last couple of years, or has it always been there? Or...
I think the whole list is meant to be sort of orientated around this so-called iconic watches list of sort of Rolex Explorers, Submariners, Daytonas, and GMTs, and then the Santos, which is iconic, and then the Nautilus Patek, and then the Tag Monaco is iconic. That's what if you want to give it that phrase. But these are the watches they're targeting. Well, they're obviously popular. They're selling.
Yeah,
but are they, like you say, are these the watches that your average watch collector really buys? Or, well, obviously the average mainstream watch collector buys, but the how am I trying to say, the most a lot of watch collectors, should I say, don't really follow these trends. They go for different independent or different other looks, colored dials, like Mark was saying, and other things.
We're getting a couple of comments through, and I just realized this now, but a lot of these watches are sort of one and dones, aren't they? Like a lot of, you can imagine this is like somebody's nice watch that they just like one off, they buy it and they have it forever type of thing.
Yeah,
a lot of these are like one and dones, aren't they? They are, like, to Colby's point, these are all of these are like a classic design. And Jurassic Time says people used to buy far more colorful cars, which is correct. And people, where is it? Yeah, Robert Coleman saying, I think this probably mirrors people's dress sense. Most people don't dress in colorfully, I suppose.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of dressing colorfully. It's a matter of what things go with. And if you have a black watch, it goes with anything, whether you're wearing black or whether you're wearing colors.
Yeah, I discuss that from time to time when I think about summer watches. Like, you'll see brands come out with their clearly summer inspired watch, and it's like, awesome, but I'm not paying $7,000 for a watch I wear 6 weeks out of the year. I get that some people are out there that will do that. That is not me. I will wear silver, gray, black, and white constantly, and so my collection is very, very conservative on dial color by and large. And fun color watches that I have owned have been inexpensive watches.
Yeah. And I agree that when I've gotten those kinds of watches, they haven't lasted long in my collection.
Yeah, I like my colourful one. I've been going through like a turquoise thing, so I've got my, Christopher Ward with the turquoise dial that I quite like, or the Dragonfly dial. But yeah, an interesting point about the cars. I was watching a YouTube video on this the other day that they were saying that a lot of, especially, I think it's like BMWs and Mercedes, it's like 50 shades of grey that they're available in. Like, and most people buy like a black or a grey, or they don't go for the more.
I think it's with cars. If you buy a car in an outrageous color, the value you will get for it when you trade it in or sell it is much, much lower. So although those colors are fascinating, they're not the ones in demand. And a big part of car ownership typically is selling it. So you have, a lot of people pay attention to its value when they sell it. If you keep a car for 20 years, it doesn't matter because its value is going to be down anyway. But the outrageous car colors tend to be now, at least in Europe, when there's so much leasing, you see people with see some of the brighter colors come back because they're not too concerned about the trade-in value. But a lot of people are concerned about trade-in value, and they know, probably because they've been burnt once before, but they know if you've got a weird color, it ain't going to sell.
Yeah, and I suppose those people that have got a lot of money that do want an out there color, they would probably just get it wrapped, wouldn't they? They would probably get the outrageous color wrapped on the car, and then, but maybe is that the same? Have we just explained the reason for the watches as well? Because more people thinking about resale value, so they're playing it safe.
Probably in part, but also there's the heritage of the watch. So, for example, dress watches don't have a history of colorful dials. If we wanted to go like dive watches, there are certain dive colors. So that's why you'll see a lot of orange in dive, and I'd say yellow and red as well have become popular. But like lime green is just not. You get weird stuff like the Kermit, and then people are like, "Oh, look, it's got Kermit on it," and then no one buys it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Into the Void saying, in rare cars, the colors become more valuable over time. I suppose.
Yeah, because they're rarer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting from the collector's perspective, which is kind of our main question for today. Yeah. I think as collectors, we all recognize that every single watch on that list is a fantastic watch. They have great heritage. They're very high quality. They're well finished. But, from our perspective, they can kind of be tainted because if we know that somebody has that watch, well, it's like, well, why did you buy that watch? Are you buying it because you're really an enthusiast, or are you just trying to jump on the hype train?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hype involved in this. Look at it. You've got to look at Nautilus and Submariners and Daytonas and
Cartier in general is the current hype brand and have been for a couple of years now.
What's interesting is no AP on any of this. I thought for sure.
Yeah.
That was an interesting standout. Yeah. You'd have thought at least one Royal Oak would have ended up on that list.
Maybe
when you got the text, I would think you'd show up with a Royal Oak or two.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it, that they've done this? I mean, I think we should maybe Dennis, we should pivot to what you were talking about, and maybe the article, because I think Ariel when he replied to it. I mean, Dennis, do you just want to go over the rough gist of what the article was about? I know you mentioned it at the start, but it had like a clickbaity title, didn't it? Like the word.
Yeah. I finally found the worst type of collector or something along the lines. And so Mike wrote the article. Ariel, I'm trying to remember. I don't even know if I read Ariel's comment by the time I went and broadcast. I think I might have. But the gist of the article was again not criticizing the watches specifically, but rather people that are relying on being told these are the popular watches, and rather than researching it and spending time discovering what you're like because you're driven by status, or you're driven by being told that these are popular and you don't want to buck the trend, that you build your collection around what other people have told you is popular. Therefore, your collection is superficial. You are a soulless collector, and congratulations on your box full of watches that if I asked AI, build me a standard 6-box luxury collection, this is exactly what it would tell me.
Yeah, it's funny. Also, what I think is in fashion at the moment is content creators sort of bashing other content creators. I know there's a few YouTube channels that have sprung up where people are being, people who are creating content are being, nasty about other people that are creating content. And I suppose Ariel's, So if he only recently posted this, within the last day, but it was
I didn't read it.
Yeah, it was interesting because he says a couple of things. So he says that essentially, the gist of it, he says that there's a tendency with online communities and hobbies, that all types of people rush through the longer, more experiential process of understanding the hobby, but replace that time and experience by reading information online. Getting information or experience secondhand is not very useful when the entire purpose of watch appreciation is learning about what you personally admire and find fascinating in the hobby. And what he says, actually, which I thought was interesting, he says, you should probably avoid social media and third-party opinions for the first few years of basically for the first few years whilst you're educating yourself and discovering watches, which I thought was like a bizarre thing
For
to
somebody
say.
who owns a business that's based on social media content creation, yes.
Yeah, I mean, also it kind of, I guess it also, I think it negates 2 points which we can discuss. One is, if you find a content creator that you like, or that you feel like they have a similar personality to you, then if they might like watches, or you might see on Instagram somebody's watch collection, you might think, okay, well, I might like that because we've got similar. I mean, you've got to experience for yourself as well. But then also, like, a lot of people don't have like endless hours to toil on a hobby, do they? I think,
or endless dollars either.
Yeah.
And that's part of the point, is how do you learn something, particularly in an expensive hobby like watch collecting? When you're an outright beginner, do you know that Red Bar exists? Do you know that watch meetups exist? You learn these by going online, and part of going online is that you will see, you have the opportunity to experience in a secondhand way far more than you can ever experience on your own. I mean, yes, you are a victim of somebody else's curation, but that's a good starting point. You don't have to believe everything you're told. But if you how do you learn that a Speedmaster exists? How do you learn that a Breitling exists when you're either going to know what's in the jewelry store window or a Rolex? How do you move from that? So I don't see how you can really learn efficiently, effectively, without spending time on social media. What you should say is question why you might be told something, but also say, well, do I like what I'm being shown?
Yeah.
That's the big question, is, do I like what people are showing me? Because if you don't, you find somebody who shows you something you do. And that's part of forming an opinion.
I don't think that you necessarily have to stay off the internet or anything like that, or social media, but I do agree with the sentiment that, but at least for me, one of the most rewarding parts of watch collecting is discovering things about myself, learning what I like, learning what I value, learning what I get excited about. And the collection that I have has evolved over the last 2 years to reflect that. As I realize more and more what I like and my preferences. And I think there's something natural about kind of having an aversion to somebody who buys a collection that does not come out of their own preferences that they have discovered and learned through being an enthusiast in the hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I have followed social media in the, let's coin the phrase, the journey, over decades, and I have followed the YouTube channels, and I've listened to them, and I've taken on board things, and I've made mistakes, and it has cost me money. I've had to sell watches, and I've had to buy watches and make mistakes, and that has become part of the journey. I think it's. I think a lot of watch collecting is part of that journey. Making your own mistakes and finding yourself, and it can't be done in just a short space of time. It is a long haul. It's
I think he's trying to suggest, isn't he, that people are kind of shortcutting, they're speed running the watch knowledge by absorbing it off people that perhaps don't know what they're talking about. But then I suppose that would indicate that perhaps they blog to watch does know that. You have to have some kind of idea of like who is the authority then on it. If you make a comment like that. But Into the Void says, I think this also misses that most people don't have access to a wide variety of watches to try on.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it can be quite intimidating, can't it, for a new collector going into a watch shop, and especially like a high-end watch shop.
Yeah.
Quite intimidating, can't it, to ask for, can I look at this watch and it's $9,000 or something?
Yeah.
Because you don't know that certainly the boutiques realize it can take 6 to 12 months to talk somebody into buying a watch.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to wander in. They want you to be comfortable with being in an environment where you're spending significant amounts of money, and they don't mind you wandering in and wandering out, because if they can get you to wander in 5 times, you'll probably buy something.
Yeah.
So they want you to walk in because they know that's the first opportunity they have to get you interested. And then sooner or later they'll sell you something. But your standard guy off the street doesn't realize that.
Right. Well,
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I also think in the case with Ariel, he got into collecting before the internet had all the social media watch channels, and there wasn't much in the way of watch journalism. So, the genie can't go back in the bottle. He's remembering how he learned, and it was just a different time then. That cannot be duplicated at this point.
I mean,
but you know what?
When I started buying, my first luxury watch was 2014, and the ecosystem certainly wasn't as developed. But then you go by, I wanted an Oris because they sponsored the Williams Formula One team. That's how I learned about the brand. I knew about Omega because my father had one, and then Christopher Ward, you'd see the adverts. That's how I got into it. And then you just go, well, can I afford it? And what do you have that I like? But there certainly wasn't the ecosystem then that there is now.
And you know what? When I think about it, I don't even think there's anything wrong with going to ChatGPT or going to Watchfinder and saying, okay, what are the most popular watches? For somebody who's just starting to get into the hobby and saying, okay, what watches are popular? I don't think there's anything wrong with going out and buying one of those watches just to see what it's like, right? And it'll be a learning experience just like anything else. But, I remember I hope this isn't controversial, but I was getting into guns. Like 5 years ago, I'm like, you know what? I want to buy a handgun. And so I did a lot of research, and I was like, okay, what's the best first handgun to buy? And I went out and I bought a Glock 19 because that seemed to be a popular recommendation. And I don't still own that today, but it helped me learn what my preferences were and what my needs were.
Yeah, I was watching the Sean Ryan show the other day, and he was talking about that, about hey, you have to try those things out. But yeah, so let's just have a look at what else is saying. So okay, so Robert's kind of corners. Question for the panel: if you had an unlimited budget for 3 watch collection, would you have any lesser known brands in the collection or just the big boys? So I guess he's asking us, if we had unlimited money, would we actually probably be going for those watches that were on that list?
No. I'd be going totally independent. I'd be going totally independent watches, watchmakers. Yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah, the rarity aspect would. I mean, again, unlimited money. I kind of wish I had a better guardrail than that. That's because then it's sort of like I want piece uniques. I want 3-piece uniques from 3 different manufacturers who are independent. But I mean, just if I had more resources, but not unlimited, like I don't know what the lineup. I don't consider these big boys, but like Maurice Grossman would be a brand I would like to own a model from that I don't. Groenfeld. I like Groenfeld's designs, but the price has kept me away. So those are a couple of brands that I would dive into, separate from like Vacheron or or Patek or something.
I would
Yeah,
I would choose an Omega because I still have the Canopus white gold Speedmaster on the bracelet as a Grail watch, but that would probably be the only one from a major brand. I have a hankering for an Armin Strom that I'll never afford. I don't know what the third one would be, but it probably wouldn't be any one of the Holy Trinity plus Rolex.
Right. Yeah.
I
probably
would
wouldn't either.
probably-
I'm thinking what you're thinking too. Oh, I'm sorry, Corey. I'm thinking what you're thinking too. I would love. I mean, on my list is a Longue datograph. Which I never really want to spend that kind of money for a watch, but that would be one of them. Maybe a really Snoopy, because I really don't want to spend the money for a Snoopy to get a Snoopy, even though I want a Snoopy. If that makes sense, or something like that. And then maybe a independent, like Thomas was talking about, a Moser, something like that.
Moser Streamliner, that would be my third choice.
Moser Streamliner chronograph. That's good. So I'd be looking at things like Bernard Lederer, £100,000 watches. Andreas Strayer, Kari Vitulainen, Hajime Asuoka, Grunfeld, like Dennis said, all these sort of people, these HCI members who just knock out amazing stuff. Work, MBNF, stuff like that, crazy stuff.
I would actually probably get a Rolex because one thing I've discovered is the Submariner, it just happens to line up with two things that are really important to me. One is great bracelet, and the second is accuracy, and it's a very accurate watch for a mechanical watch.
Yeah, I might get that the titanium Yachtmaster. I quite like the look of that. But nobody mentioned the brand new Jacob & Co. 4-axis tourbillon. I'm surprised.
That was my fourth. That was my fourth pick, but we were limited to 3.
Yeah, there was like a funny meme or something on Instagram the other day about expectation versus reality of a Richard Mille when you show it to your wife. Sort of either expect him to be like, oh, that's amazing, but then most people are like, oh, is that like a toy watch? Like if you didn't know what it was, like you wouldn't think it was like literally one of the most probably one of the most expensive watches that you can buy that isn't like a piece unique. So Saul says here, I use Perplexity to do a comparison on watch details that I don't have time to research, e.g. Neo Vintage Tudor 79097 and the 7910. Yeah, so that's using the internet too. I suppose Ariel's sort of talking about like he had to go with the books, wasn't he? Like you were looking through those books with the black and white catalogs and the
early forums like Time Zone and stuff is what I think is where he was at. Though I actually learned about the article when I was listening to the Blog to Watch podcast, and Ariel had brought the article up and they were talking about it. And Todd's perspective on this one might be interesting because he was asked what do you think of as collectors that are not, that are uninspired? And his example was, well, someone who only owns Seikos. He's like, branch out a little bit. Like the one brand collector he felt was someone who was living in a very myopic world, and that was probably what he thought was the biggest sin in watch collecting.
Seiko.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh dear, yeah. We've somebody was asking Todd. You're a little bit breaking up there. We haven't put Todd in witness protection. I think it's just the internet there.
Yeah.
So that is interesting, isn't it? Especially with if you collected I guess Swatch watches or like Citizen or like Seiko, there's like a vast variety. There's like a decades and decades worth of thousands and thousands of different models, isn't there? I mean, there's vintage digital Casios that pop up on my eBay feed that I've never even seen.
But let's qualify it a little more, because what I don't think what Ariel was getting at was someone like Todd actually doing a dive into building a true collection of curated pieces. let's do it this way. You've started watch collecting. You have a box with 6 holes in it, and you filled them all with modern Seiko.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
where I think he was getting at.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Seiko, like this is my grab and go Seiko 5 right here.
I'm gonna try.
Right. I mean, I love it. Other than a quartz piece, right? This is just a nifty. Would I have 6 of these Seiko divers or equivalent, or maybe some turtles? Yeah, that gets to be. I agree. I don't think that you're really doing much there. You're not curating anything. You're kind of buying probably something that's reasonably priced, a couple $100, $200, $300, $400. I don't know. Seiko keeps going up in price, but let's say $400 or $500, and pretty soon you end up with a $2,000 6-watch box that's not really worth a lot. And the question is, do you get a lot of joy out of it or not? Is the question.
Yeah.
But
Fine with you.
I would go, and when I heard that, and the one thing though, even with modern Seiko, is you do have a lot of case designs, different bezels, different case shapes, if you want to, that you can play with. Let's take Rolex on the other end, where everything is in the oyster case, except for the 1908, which is my problem with I have one Rolex. I could see myself maybe having 2, but when I see collections of just Rolex and they're all oyster cases, I initially can't tell them apart until you start saying all the cute little nicknames. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, that's the Sprite. Oh yeah, no, that's the Batman. Oh yeah, no. And it's kind of like, but it's like Zoolander. They're all the same. Blue Steel, Magnum, they're all the same. They're all the same case.
Yeah.
Of course they wear great. There's one with different dials and different bezels. And I just, for me, it's not very interesting after you have a couple of that. But at least with Seiko, you can get a monster and a samurai and a turtle. And, there's some, at least the cases are different. The bracelets are all trash, but at least the cases are different.
Yeah, I mean, Citizen have a lot of fun as well, don't they, with their different designs, and even some of the new Seiko Datsun. I love that watch.
I like that.
I seriously might put that on the list. The Eric Grimes says there's a difference between collecting versus hoarding. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. That's why I try and thin my collection out quite a bit, just to make sure that I'm actually wearing them. Just seeing if he's so there was another interesting point as well that I wanted to talk through, and he said it's about another major problem is with how people are being trained to assess the value of watch doing a tech spec analysis. There is an idea that the goal of watch collecting is to get the most specs for the lowest price. I think maybe when you start out watch collecting, I was guilty of that. But I think as you sort of, ease into it.
I think it is a common starting point, Sam. I agree with you. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. But that's really the attitude to take when you just want one really good watch, I would say. Like, and once you're getting, like, eventually, like, are you trying to say a style? Or are you are you trying to have the watch say something about you? Or do you just want something that meets a checklist? And there are a lot of really good options. And there are times where you would want that. And I think it's reasonable to want that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and there is. Sorry, go on, Colby.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think specs, and I did that too. I remember going to my local AD and just raving about Steinhardt watches. Because look, you can get an SW300 and it's only $500. And come on.
Yeah,
but
I think. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, as you go in the hobby, I think you learn what specs are actually important to you versus what doesn't really matter. Like a screw down crown, I don't really care about a screw down crown. That's not a box that I need to have checked, but micro extension on the bracelet, on the fly extension, yes, that is something that I look for as a spec.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also, when they first, I think the tech, the spec comparison could actually help a lot of people out as well, because the amount of people that I know that I've met that their first watch was like an Armani watch or like a Michael Kors or like a fashion watch. Like if they knew that the movement in there was like a $9 Ronda quartz movement, then which there's absolutely nothing wrong with. But when the watches are like $500 and they're very poorly made, I think sometimes the specs do help out. It's a friend of mine messaged me the other day, like he's not really into watches, but he was asking me like he wanted a sports watch. He texted me 2 pictures. One was of an Armani watch and one of a tag that he had. He says, I've got these 2 watches. And I said, no, you've got one watch. The other one is a fashion accessory.
But did you suggest which was which?
Well, of course, yeah. And I was guilty of that. I wore a diesel jeans watch for a long time, like, on the bund strap. It was a good looking watch. I don't think I overpaid for it, but that was my watch before. I think that was my watch before I actually bought my Speedmaster. Before I went down that route, but
I think we all start with the spec things like Dennis and Colby have mentioned, and yourself, and I mean, I'm a big fan of military watches, and you know, so there's a record Dirty Dozen style watch. All these would have had the same specs, basically, as long as they met a certain spec by the Ministry of Defence as a field watch. But there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of different types of military watches you can collect, and it's just another arm of the hoarding, I guess.
I suppose section. As well, like with the military watches as well, is it's like some watches, it's the history of the watch, isn't it?
Yeah,
the actual And he also there was another part of this article as well where he was talking about that that people have been trained by social media to basically jump on these kind of like hype brands, and he mentioned this other thing which I kind of sort of agree with. He says first is that people are being hang on, just let me share it again, sorry. He says first is that people are being trained to place too high expectations on luxury watches and thus assume if they spend a lot, there will be all sorts of returns, such as social validation or return on their investment. This is due to many overzealous, sensational personalities online that create unreasonable high expectations around benefits of retail therapy. I sort of agree that in the sense that there's not, like if you have like $1,000 watch and then a $10,000 watch, the $10,000 watch is better, but it's not like 10 times better usually, is it? The
diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't know if it's social media. I think people who look to social media to find out what will validate them in the eyes of others are already people who they're going to get the hype watch no matter what. Like, it's people who have no, moral compass or no, I don't know, whatever you want to say. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's for the people that that support people, the rich people online that are showing off their wealth, and then they try and tell you a course afterwards. Is like, I think it's aiming at those people, aren't they? Because those people that don't ask themselves, why is this guy, if he's like a billionaire, why is he selling a course on how to get rich? Why isn't he just like why isn't he just becoming more rich himself? Like, it's kind of a funny situation, isn't it? Like, I've got a great stock. All right, well, you put all your life savings in it then if it's amazing.
Right.
I just wonder for like the social currency side of it, though. After they buy the first watch and nobody asks them about it, do they not give up at that point? Do they not give up at that point? And go, oh, I guess people don't notice watches. Yeah, it's funny, and even when I've recognized people with watches like out in the wild, I've sometimes not asked them about, because I was on a plane and a guy sat next to me and it was the real deal. It was like a gold Royal Oak chronograph, and I said, "Oh, that's a nice Royal Oak chronograph," and he like put his sleeve up because I think it worried him that somebody recognized it, because. I mean, it's a high value piece, that, isn't it? I just said, oh, how'd you get that? Oh, I got it for retirement and stuff like that. So
sometimes I don't approach people. You know,
you don't have that problem with
out in the
Seiko. Let me tell you that. I can approach people with Seiko, and very few of them are fearful that I'm going to rip the watch off of their wrist or steal it in some way. I don't know why. But yeah.
Yeah. And you don't see there is a lot of hype watches that I have only seen one person, and it's actually somebody I work with, who's actually got a really nice watch collection. He's got a Rolex as well, but that's the only Hublot I've ever seen in the wild. Was the one that he had. It's the Big Bang one that's actually really nice, like the most understated. I don't think has anybody else, not at like a watch show. I mean, like when you're out and about, has anybody seen like anybody wear a Hublot? Like,
No.
No,
Yeah,
I don't see very many watches in the real world, quite frankly, that aren't Apple watches or another smartwatch. A few Seikos I've seen on some, like where I work. My boss is a collector. He has a few Oris watches.
Yeah, and that empty.
Another interesting thing I remember you mentioning on your yesterday's stream, Dennis, about when you reflected about this article, was that you mentioned that about the climbing of the ladder during the hobby, the ascension of the ladder, and getting better watches throughout the ladder. And it's not the same for me. I was like exactly like you said, I bounce around all over the place. So I don't get better watches as I go along. I get a nice watch, and then I'll go to a budget watch, and then I'm another budget watch, and then I may get a nicer one. And I'm all over the place with my watch collecting. There's no sort of pathway that dictates that I have to follow this sort of like start at the bottom with a cheap watch and then go to the higher watches.
I was being a phrase that rubs me the wrong way a bit is entry-level luxury, which I think is but it's in a way it's very descriptive. Like, all right, we're entering into the luxury price point when I say that term, and I've used that term before, but I don't like that it implies that, oh, well, this is beginner luxury. Like you start with Oris and Tudor,
right,
and then when you're a big boy, you move up to something else. And
if you're still on Hamilton in 10 years, then something's gone wrong.
Right. And so I don't think it's ever been meant by a lot of people to be a loaded term, but it bothers me because it implies that this is a linear path where you start with Vostok and Hamilton and Seiko, and then you work your way up into Tudor and Oris, and then you're into Grand Seiko, and then you get Rolex, and then if you're rich enough, you go ahead and you start getting Vacherons. Like, it's not. And before I was a collector, my first nice watch was an Explorer 2 that I bought used. I wore that for over 15 years before I got into collecting. And so when I got into collecting, I started getting more affordable pieces. And like last year, I bought a Baltic, but I also bought a Breguet. I'm going on my own little weird journey here, but because it's not about the price to me, but there are different things to appreciate at the different levels. But that's not necessarily the right path for everyone. I don't like to imply to people that it's supposed to be linear, because I think that it sends the wrong message, and it sets them up for failure.
And I think that's part of what people who we generally consider to be enthusiasts, that's part of what it makes you an enthusiast, is you progress according to what's better for you, or by your definition, right? As you discover your preferences, as you discover new things and discover what you like, not according to the price ladder of the watch industry.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a great point to probably end on then, because we've managed to go the full hour there. I really appreciate everyone being so active in the comments. Thank you so much for that. And a big thanks to everyone on the panel taking some time out on a Sunday to discuss what was quite an interesting article and interesting top 20. Well, thanks for the panel. Thanks everyone who joined in the comments, and we'll see you next week on Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social.